This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, guys. So yesterday we were trying to execute PowerShell script on a specified server using remote PowerShell script task, right? And we failed. Actually, we did everything right, but that was a mistake from my side. Let me show you what was that mistake we made basically. Okay. Before that, let me open this portal. Somehow, I mean, I couldn't notice that, and of course, you guys cannot notice it. Let me start the machine name. So here, if you observe, right, front end server 1 QA, front end server 2 QA, right? This is a machine name that I see here. Let me start the other one as well. So what I was doing yesterday, I have taken the machine name from here, virtual machine name, and then using it in our release pipeline, right? dev.azure.com. Let me log in. Releases. So yesterday here I was giving front end server 1 hyphen QA. This is what and front end server 2 hyphen QA. But this is not the computer name basically. I mean the server name. Okay, you can see here computer name. Basically, this is what will be. I mean, I'm not sure why. I actually, when I was creating this virtual machine, I given the name as hyphen QA. Okay, but this is strange. I never faced it. Okay, so but the computer name was taken as front end server one. It didn't consider hyphen QA. I don't know the reasons, guys. Even I need to see it actually. Rest everything, everywhere. If you see public IP address name, it is a front end server one hyphen QA hyphen IP. Everywhere, wherever see, it consider the full name basically when it is naming other areas. But for the server name like computer name, it is taken as a front end server one. So that was the mistake. I mean, I couldn't notice it because I never faced it, and hence. I'm giving front end server 1 hyphen QA, but actual computer name is front end server 1. That was reason we were failing basically. If you see the reason, if I go to the failed ones, right? Let us say go to any one of these failed ones. Yesterday morning, right? 7:47 or 8:15, whatever. It is telling me, okay, the remote session query failed for front end server 1 hyphen QA with the following error. The WinRM client cannot process the request because server name cannot be resolved. Means it is not able to identify that server name. That's the reason it was failing. But since I am not able to notice this, and most of the times we get the generic exceptions like that, I was thinking this is a generic exception. But the mistake what I did was I did not notice my computer name is different from front end server one QA. But why this computer name is different? If you remember, we ran one command, right? If we go to run command section under operations, we ran this command. Is it not started? Looks like it's not started yet. Let me see. Oh, it's not started. Let me start. Started, right? Why it is showing me not started? Is it not refreshed? Okay, now it is running. If we go to the run command, okay, and enable remote PS, okay, expand the script. If you see this, what the script is doing, basically what it is doing, now you know the PowerShell, right? Then now you will understand. It is using command to enable PS remoting, and then it is creating a new firewall rule with the name allow WinRM HTTPS, and the name of this rule is WinRM HTTPS. It is enabling that one, and it is enabling on any profile in your server. Profile means your servers will have profiles basically. Okay, public profile, private profile, etc. Server administration. Okay, and it is a inbound port 5986. Okay, after that it is creating a certificate as well. You can self-signed certificate. I mean, this is general process. If you want to have some HTTPS enabled in your servers, you need to create a you need to buy certificate from companies like a CA, etc., or you can generate your own certificate using command line utilities as well. So it created a certificate on the computer name. You see, computer name. Okay, since the computer, it is using computer name to create a certificate. Obviously that certificate contains all these things in a hash format. Now the computer name that I am giving in my release pipeline, the computer name that is used for this creation of the certificate are different. That's the reason it is saying, hey, unable to resolve your server name. Somehow I missed it. I mean, I didn't notice that one. Okay, now, so I, that's the only thing I observed basically. Front end server one QA, I just given the computer name, and this is all working. So I given the server password, right, in my variable section. Okay, this is working basically. Now if you go and run it, it will run basically. So so it's a overlook by me. Let me log in. Please try these things, after the session, so that you can immediately remember all these things. So just open this IE, because our script is to close the IE browser if it is open basically. Okay. Let me go to this pipeline. You can see the script here, inline script, right? For each process, if there is a process open called IE Explorer, then kill that process. That's the one. Now if you go and run it, create release, and then since it is a manual trigger, you need to click on the deploy, right? Click this and then deploy. Now you can see here, this is IE opened, right? Once it is completed, you can see this IE getting closed basically. This is in the server. You see it's gone basically. It's already done. Let me expand this. You can see. So the IE is closed because now the script is working. Okay. So front end server is completed. Okay. what are these two issues? Let's see basically. Okay, we have front end server 2. Let me see. What is the server I logged in? 62. Okay. Yeah, 62. It's closed already. Then what is the issue it is giving me? Yeah, you can see this is succeeded. Front end server 1. It is succeeded. Script execution succeeded for computer name front end server 1. I'm just checking what is the other exception that I'm getting, but the PowerShell is executed. So this I need to stop it. This Selenium is keep on running. Let me stop it because we don't have a Selenium thing, everything there. Okay. I'm having mix and match, right? That's the reason sometimes you may see issues. Yeah. Okay. You see, I mean, we are using QA deployment group, right? And it is having two servers, right? Two servers, okay. And but I enable this remote PowerShell scripting, remote PowerShell scripting features only on one server, not on the other server. But this task is part of this web deployment group. So it is trying to run it on the other server. That's the reason we are getting the issues. But if you see on front end server 1, we open this IE and it executed basically. What we need to do if you want to avoid all these issues, you can go and do the same thing on other servers as well basically. Okay. And other thing what I did was on these servers I don't have any IIS etc. I mean, if we go here, this is a fresh server I created. You can see there is no IIS. Actually this server is not configured for anything. Okay. And but this deployment group is configured for the website deployment, right? You see here. So it will have some issues because of this one as well. Because if it is having IIS installed and a .NET configured, we will not have any issues. So we mixed it in this one. In this web deployment group, I'm using this PowerShell. Okay, this is executed successfully, but the lack of IIS and other related ones, related software on my laptop, on my server, it is having the issues. Okay, that's it. But if once you install IIS and then you configure your server, uh, just have the IIS. That's it. It will work. I mean, it will not give any issues, even though you don't have these things, copying and deploying your sites. Okay, you can try this and let me know. Okay. So this script is for running script. This task is running scripts on all the servers that are there available in your deployment group. This script is to run on a specified servers. When you make it specified, you need to give a server name colon 5986. If it is more than one, you need to give basically a comma separated list. and then give the user ID password. You can keep the password in the variable section and encrypt it. Okay, and you can keep the script either inline. If it is a file path, you need to give the path of the server where you are having that script. That is one. What are the prerequisites? First, you need to enable remote PowerShell scripting on the server by going to the run command. After that, you need to enable inbound. You need to add a firewall entry in your networking section. That is 5986. Once you do those things, you will be able to. So I'm in the front end server 2 here. That's why it is showing. It is not showing that. Once you do both of the things, you will be able to run PowerShell scripts remotely on your server. Basically, remotely means from your any other server or from any other process. You can run them. You can run the scripts on this server basically. So using the prerequisites, you know how to run it. Please go ahead and try it actually. Okay. And I just wanted to, show some complex PowerShell scripts as well. And I will give you some exercise. You can go and do it after that. So right, so far you've seen how to use, for loops, if loops, and some commands, and how you can execute them from your release pattern basically. But in general, you will have many housekeeping activities. But of course, you will not do those housekeeping activities because that will come under server administrators or Azure cloud administrators or any support team who is managing the environment. But you are a DevOps engineer, you will not do it. But somehow if you are asked to do it, right, since you learned PowerShell, I'm just going to introduce you to the complex PowerShell scripting so that you can also go and write PowerShell scripts using the commands based on the logic required or based on the requirement what you have. Okay, one general thing always you get is a free disk space basically. How do you identify disk space available on all the servers in your organization or in your business unit? Okay, so for that, you may have a list of servers in an Excel file, or generally it will be .csv file. Okay, or you may have to query all the servers in your subscription as well. If it is that is the case, let us say every server is on a cloud, then probably you can go and take your subscription name, find out all the servers in your subscription, and find out all the free space available. If the free space is small, then you have to go and take some action. I mean, server administrator will go and action. Oh, this disk is having 100 GB of space, but 90 GB is already consumed, so we need to do something. So they can take such kind of actions. So how do if it is a one server, obviously what people will go, they will log into the server and go to PC and identify it, right? Okay, 75 GB of 237 is free, that's okay. But if it is 100 servers and they have to do it repeatedly, it takes days and days, right? You to log into the server and verify it. So you need to write some scripting for that basically. So my requirement is that there might be more than one server. Okay, the script should go and identify all the drives available, C drive, D drive, etc., and it should give me the free space available. Okay, 75.9 GB, 817 GB per D drive. These details I want to fetch it. So based on this one, your administrator will take some action. Okay, for that, you need to write some complex script actually. So as simple as that, right? You will have a list of servers. You need to loop through all those servers, and once you loop it, you need to uh, query these disks, query the disk of each and every server, and from that disk you need to take this free space number, and it might be in bits. You need to convert that bits into GB, and then create a report based on that one basically. So I already written a script. Okay, let me open that for you. Okay, I generally keep it in a text document so that I can easily open it. That's it. Okay, let me copy. Let me close this. Let me show you what it is doing. Okay, first I am taking the list of servers from a text file. Basically you can see input.txt. Okay, and where it is on my desktop, but I don't know, I mean, who is going to execute this file and where they keep it. I mean, let us say if it is your desktop, your path will, I mean, this entire path, only your username will be different basically. So that's the reason I am using $env. So $env means it will take the server name and append with username basically. Okay, let us say if I go to my desktop, you can see it basically. I have some input file here. This is where I kept my server name. Since I'm running from my local laptop, I don't have many servers, so I just given for this script purpose, I just given the same name two times, same server name. Okay, this is my laptop name. Okay, so if I see this, see C colon users Purnachandra dot k desktop, right? But I tell everyone to go and keep this on the desktop, but this part will vary. That's the reason we use this environment variable $env username. So it will be dynamic when you use this. You can go and check this. Basically, dollar username. Easy Purnachandra dot k. So now this path became dynamic. Okay, and excuse me, one second. For the next one, I want to query all the drives. So first I need to no declare all the drives that will be available, right? C, D, E, etc. Just give me a second. Let me take a water. Sorry, I'm getting cough in the morning only. Not sure. Okay. So I'm basically creating another variable and initializing with the empty space basically. After that, my logic is started. So I want to look through all the servers that are there in my input.txt file. Okay. For that, since I already got list of servers into this variable, I'm just doing a for each loop. For each server in the list of servers, I'm taking server by server. So I am using trim method. If there is any white space before and after the name, it will trim it actually. Okay, and then it will write it to my console. Okay, saying that processing the server name, and this is the command that I can use to query all the disks on my given computer name. If you see, and I'm putting into variable name $disk. If you see, get WMI object, and you have to this hyphen class, and what is the class of the disk? Win32 logical. This I have to go by documentation. These two things, okay. And on which computer I want to take all this disk information, and I'm taking the computer name from this variable name. You can see here, and if there is any error, just stop this command. Basically, that's what I'm saying. And I'm using a try catch block here. So try catch block is a mechanism in any programming language or scripting. If there is any error here, it will go to control will go to catch block basically. That's it. That is the reason to catch any exceptions. We use try catch block. Okay. Dollar underscore, you already seen it. It will give the uh, the last executed line basically. Okay, so now my dollar disk contains some information. If you want to see this, all you have to do is however I am doing, you can once I given the script to you, right, you can go and do the same thing so that you will understand what we have there. Let us say, so anyways, let me do it. Dollar disks. Okay, sorry, computer name is empty. That's the reason it is saying, because I did not take the computer name. This dollar server doesn't have anything, right? I can give my computer name. Okay, so let me take from the input text. Now if you run this, now you see C drive information. Okay, you can see C drive information, and then D drive information, and then E drive information. It is giving me some data as well. Device type is 3, free space, it is in bits basically. This is free space is 81 something, and then size, and then volume name. You can see volume name also. Volume name is what you see here, right? This is a drive, C drive. Whatever you see the label here is a volume basically data. Okay, so I got all this information using this dollar. I mean gateway WMI object. Now what I am doing after that is, see, I am basically now applying the logic. Okay, if disks variable is having some data, then come to this else section. Okay, you can see I use a not as well. And then I'm creating an object of a PS custom object. PS custom object is to format some data basically. Let us say now I'm getting C drive, D drive, U drive information, right? I want to put it in some format. That for to format data into something, then I use a PS custom object. So since it is based on the .NET, it is a class. If I want to use any methods available in this class, I have to use a new object. Okay, now an object is created, and on that object I'm basically formatting the data. Guys, you need to try this. Okay, I'm just explaining one by one. I'm putting the server name, and then a label called server name, and then I'll keep the server name, actual server name as well. And for each letter in drives, I got the drives basically dollar drives. Okay, and the top for each letter in the drives switch, I'm using switch here. If the drive name is C colon D colon E colon, then basically I'm formatting into like this: OS data external. Like this, I'm formatting my data. Why I'm formatting? To create a beautiful report. Okay, and the actual crux of this report is this one: creating a free space. This is a I created a variable, and I'm querying each and every disks and applying where object. I mean querying drive. Okay, so I have CD drive, right? This query will execute for 3 times because I have 3 drives. You can see the variable dollar letter. First, it will work for a C drive. Okay, if disk is having this C drive, then select the free space value and apply round option, round method in your arithmetics, and divided by 1 GB. So I am dividing the free space by 1 GB, then I will get some value, some float number, right? So let us say some 650.5678, etc. But I'm rounding it to two numbers. Instead of 5678, I will take only 56. That's what a round number. What I suggest, when I give this right, you run these things block by block, then you will understand how this query is working. See, now I ran this command, right? I ran this command, then I saw what is coming in the disks basically. You see that when I query this disk, You see, this is the information, right? Free space and volume and everything. Okay. From this free space only, we can see the free space here. From the disks is having free space. From here only, I am taking, I'm manipulating or calculating or converting that bits into GB basically. You need to run one by one statement so that you will understand. Okay. Once I calculate my free space, okay, if free space is not equal to empty, then what I am doing, I am formatting value with GB basically. I got some numeric value and I'm adding a GB basically, so that it looks like 750 GB, 800 GB, like that. And after that I'm adding that value to this formatting object, dollar object, whatever you see here basically. And finally I'm adding to the reporting variable, dollar report equal to dollar report plus dollar object. Okay. And finally I'm exporting all that data to uh, some file called freespace.csv, and it is going to be on my desktop basically, freespace.csv. Let me go and see if there is a freespace.csv on my desktop as of now. So there is one here. Let me delete this. Right now this is empty anyways. If it is not there, it will create. If it is there, it will append basically. Okay. Right now it is empty. Now just go and execute this. You can see processing laptop, two servers. Now if I go and open my free space file, the data is written. What it is saying, because both are the same, both servers are the same, right? So that's the reason you see the same data. On C drive I have 75.96 GB data free space, and on data drive, which is a D drive, I have 817. External drive, nothing is found basically. Okay. And if I come here, you can say 75.9. This is rounded to I think one decimal, and it is 817. If we come here, that's what you see. Okay. And you may think that, okay, now I am having this list of servers in a input file, but if I want to uh, if I don't have an input file, I need to query it. Then let us say you want to query all the servers in your Azure resource group, and then do this logic. Okay. Then what you have to do, you have to modify the script little further basically. Let us say I have this for each, right? You can take the virtual machines, and then for each virtual machine, then you have to apply the script basically. So this will change. So basically, instead of taking from your input file, you will take it from, you will apply all that stuff. What is that? Get az vm dollar vms equal to, but you need to connect this, you know, you need to have the script should be authenticated to query from your what is say your Azure portal, right? For that you need to use connect az, what is that query command name, connect az account. So and you need to format little bit here, because in this dollar server variable I'm directly having the server name. Okay. But if you are using get azvm, you will not have, along with server name you will have some other data as well. Let me show you another place. Let me run this. You see, the script is get azvm is executed. Okay, now you get all the. Now let me scan this. Okay, sorry, comment this. Now execute these two things. So I got the, see, along with I have so much stuff in my dollar VMs basically. Okay, but I am interested only in the server name. How do I take only this server name from all these things? So VMS dot, you should have some name or process name. Okay, generally we'll have the name. Okay, let me take this, but you need to know what to be used here, right? Dollar name. So you got the names here, right? Front end server 1 QA, front end server 2 QA. But how do you know what property to be used? Yesterday I told you, you need to use a get member if you want to know. Let us say dollar VMS get member, right? If you use this, you will know what are all the properties and methods available on your variable or method. You can see all the properties. Jones, member type is a property, and what is the name you need to use. Okay, you go here, resource group name. If you say resource group name, you will get the resource group name. Okay, and then so many things, right? You just need to copy to, what is say, notepad and see it, basically all the properties that you have it. Should give that sometime. It's not completely copied, sorry. But now, I mean, this is how, basically you know, to know what properties and methods are available. It is not completely copied. That's the reason I see less entries. So now I know in which property I have the name, basically. That's the reason I'm able to get the names of my servers, though I'm having these many properties, name, location, etc., but I'm interested only in this one. So in your script, you have, instead of trim, you have to use something called a name, basically. And rest everything will be same. Okay, guys, you try this one. As I told you, you follow this video, and then first try this script as is, and then try to use your querying Azure Cloud to query the servers in your Azure Cloud, and prepare a report, basically. You will get some exceptions. We will resolve those exceptions. Okay, but this will be a good exercise for you. Okay, make sense? This is a complex script.
Puna, one question.
Huh. Yes.
So, as a DevOps engineer, do we need to provide these kind of reports for the team?
No, no. This comes under support team. But why I am telling you? So you learned PowerShell right now. Okay, you know how to use loops, variables, and some commands, etc. But if you don't practice it, let us say in future you may need to write some PowerShell script for your some CI/CD pipe. Let us say just now, right? Uh, I mean, in any deployment, as I told you in our previous PowerShell script, you need to change the file permissions or folder permissions. So for such kind of things also, you need to write the PowerShell script, right? Okay.
Yes.
So if you practice these kind of things, then you will be able to write such kind of small scripts easily, basically. Okay, as part of
Okay.
your deployments. Okay, that's the reason I taken this one. But generally, who will do this one? Okay, this is a part of your tech support team, or who basically support your applications and support your servers, right? For them, it is a day-to-day work basically. Okay, I have
Okay.
my friends in supporting who do it regularly. Okay, in fact, I did this script, for one of my friends some 5 6 months ago. I mean, he asked me, hey, every day I'm spending almost 5 6 hours only on top of this. Okay, I take some script. I created this script and gave it to him basically, and that's the reason I'm showing it to you now. Okay, I felt it
Okay.
is useful because you see all of the concepts what we learned are covered here basically. Okay. Now, if you want to go and write another script, you will be able to think about it actually. Okay, in order to do it, I need to use commands like this. I need to use try catch blocks, and this is how I use. If that variable is having some data or not. Okay, and this is how I can read the data from a file or create a file on demand into my desktop or anywhere. So it is covering all those things. That's the reason I felt it is a good one. Okay. Similarly, what you
Yeah.
can do, you can take some exercises. Let us say uh, in our inet, see, you can do work in n number of ways. Okay, there is no one solution for each problem, right? There will be n number of solutions. Okay, but for practice, what you can do, even I'm creating this, website from here, right? You can create it from release pipeline as well, and you can create from your PowerShell as well. Probably you can go and play with how to create a website with PowerShell. Okay, since now you know all this syntax and semantics, when you get material queries from online, you will be able to easily understand and use it basically. Okay,
Okay.
and if you see that run command option, what does that contain? That is a PowerShell, right? That run command what we
Mm.
used in our server to enable remote PowerShell execution, that is also PowerShell. Now you will understand all this. And we were executing that deployment group agent on the servers. What is that? That is a PowerShell, right? Now if you go and read that one, you will understand each and every statement or word that they used in the script basically. And based on that, after one or couple of days practice, you will be write your own script. You need to practice it. Okay, that's it. There
Okay.
is no silver spoon here. Okay, it's not a magic, right? You need to practice.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So just remind me after this one so that I'll put this all in my D drive and share it with you. The PowerShell commands and the scripts that I used. Okay.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So okay. So that's about PowerShell. And okay, one thing that I did not show is how to create some. Let us say so far we did not take any parameters from outside environment, right? If you want to make some parameterized script, to take some values from external world, from other script, or from command prompt, or something from any source, you can create a parameterized as well. How do you create a parameterized script? Let us say previously I have this one. What is that? Free space, right? If I want to take something from somewhere else as well, let us say I have this parameter. If I want to take some inputs from external world, I can do like this: param open close, and you have to give either you can give it or you don't need to give it string or string, because PowerShell is dynamic. If you give integer, it will become integer variable. If you give string, it will become string variable. So this is how we can take inputs from external world in your script basically. Okay, let me save this. Query displays. Okay, now what I'm doing, I'm just going to basically display these values, argument 1 and argument 2. Okay, uh, what you do, I can run this script. How do I run this script? Either you can go to PowerShell ISC, or you can go to PowerShell and you can run this script basically. Okay, you need to give the complete path of the script, right, to run it. So where is this script? Query disk space, and this is the complete path. Let me take this, paste it, and then query disk space dot es1, right? Let me see this. How this one? Yeah, query disk space dot es1, and I can give arguments as well. Let us say you can see, right, it is reading that one. The parameter is sent is high Purna, and obviously the other logic is executed already. So this is how you can change your script to parameterized script, okay, using params block, PARAM. Inside that you can put how many arguments you want, and those arguments can be used in our script as well if you want. Okay, it is as simple as that. Parameterized script. Okay, yes, I mean that's about PowerShell script. I introduced you and explain you all the concepts that are available. Now it's all about taking some examples and experimenting yourself basically, so that you will become a pro. I mean, if you practice it for 5 6 hours, that's it. You will be done with PowerShell. You will be able to write any script. Okay. So if you have a, so I will take another 15 to 20 minutes to explain another concept. Okay. Are you guys good?
Can I do it tomorrow?
Sure. Yeah, that's what I'm asking. If I
Because
started, yeah, it takes 20 minutes for sure. 20 25 minutes. Okay.
okay, because again I'll be late.
Okay, then I will take that another concept tomorrow. That is about Azure artifacts basically. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll close it for today. After the artifacts, we will get into fundamentals of Azure Kubernetes service basically. Okay. Then at that point of time, again we will back to CI/CD pipeline. Okay. Now even Azure artifacts also will come to pipelines again. Okay.
Puna, can you share the PowerShell scripts as discussed
Yeah.
earlier?
Sure. I have your email IDs, right? That Gmail ID.
Yeah.
I'll put all those things in a drive. Even that Selenium project that I used. Okay. And the PowerShell scripts and these commands as well in that drive. You can download it from there. Okay.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.